Welcome to the MADA Safety and Loss Control YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to talk about avoiding slips, trips, and falls. Whenever we crunch data at MADA, we look at slips and falls from two different categories: slips and falls from ice and snow, and all other slips, trips, and falls that are not from heights. And that's how this video is going to be broken down. So why does MADA and your employer make such a big fuss of preventing slips, trips, and falls? Look at the charts on the right. The most expensive dealership injury by cause in the top chart shows that ice and snow and falls from the same level are the two leading categories of expensive dealership injuries, accounting for more than 35% of all of the dollars paid in workers' compensation claims. What this equates to for the average person or worker is that these claims are some of the most long-term debilitating accidents that generally are going to involve surgery or lost time, therapy appointments that are seemingly ongoing, and follow-up appointments that never stop. So essentially what this means is there's a lot of pain and suffering associated with these slip and fall injuries. Furthermore, in the chart on the bottom, it shows that it wasn't just one or two claims that's driving up those two categories, because you can see that ice and snow is the third most common accident, even though we get ice and snow, 4 months out of the year, and all other falls are number 5. Because those slips and falls from ice and snow lead the other category of slips and falls, let's go ahead and unpack the strategies to prevent the slips and falls from ice and snow. First and foremost, we want to check the weather forecast and take notice from alerts by your employer. Some employers are going to have meetings before the ice and snow starts or at the end of the day. They could send out mass text messages, phone calls, or emails. However you get your weather news, make sure you heed those warnings and use some of these strategies so you're prepared. So give yourself plenty of time getting to work and in the building. A lot of incidents take place on the way to work, walking inside the building, or right inside the door. While on the subject, go ahead and take advantage of those floor mats. Dry your feet when you walk in the door, especially when there's ice and snow present. And make sure you come to work in the proper attire. I'm going to talk about shoes in great detail shortly, but make sure you're wearing warm clothes as well. Cold body parts are a leading risk factor in sprains and strains, is something to keep in mind. Oftentimes, slips and falls could be avoided just by choosing the proper shoe. Please do not wear your leather-soled shoes or heels when it's icy or snowy out. You can always change when you get back to your workstation, and that is only if your job doesn't entail you going in and out throughout the day. Sales, advisors, technicians, lot porters, you guys need to put on a good shoe with good traction or boot and keep that on for the duration of the day. Slip-on snow cleats are a great option for walking in harsh conditions, like if you're cleaning the lot or wiping off cars. However, you need to make sure you take them off before you walk inside on tile or finished concrete, as they can be very slippery. Living and working in Missouri, at some point in time, we're all going to have to walk through poor conditions like ice and snow. It's just the nature of the beast. But here are some tips to help you whenever you are having to walk through those poor conditions. Hold on to the vehicle or another stable surface when getting in and out of cars. Also take advantage of handrails and other stabilizing surfaces as much as possible. That way you can catch yourself if you do start to fall, or avoid the fall altogether. Avoid uneven surfaces like stairs and curbs. Carry as few items as possible, if any. That way you can keep your hands free to help you stabilize on those hard surfaces, and also it can help you catch your fall appropriately so you don't face plant. Consider using a backpack or something that doesn't require your hands if you bring a lot of items in and out of work. Avoid patches of ice and snow. This should be common sense, but you'd be surprised how many people decide to walk through the ice and snow and end up getting a sending a claim over to MADA because they chose to walk in the wrong spot when they clearly could have walked on dry pavement. And walk slowly and carefully. Walk like a penguin with your feet directly underneath you. Sounds silly, but it does work. Actually, whenever you watch people, there have been studies done observing people's gaits whenever they're walking on stable surfaces to a slippery surface. And your gait is going to change naturally whenever you are walking on an ice rink, for example. The problem that we run into mostly is people's gaits don't change quick enough. So you need to train yourself to understand that at any point in time, whenever I'm walking in these potential conditions, that the surface I'm walking on could change. So using caution and walking like a penguin as much as possible is going to help you out and help you prevent those slips and falls. And here's a graphic of what I mean by that. Normally, whenever you walk, your legs support your weight at an angle. So that angle pressure down onto ice or snow is going to make you more likely to slip than your pressure going straight up and down like the graphic on the right, like a penguin. A quick note about snow removal, since it is a related activity. Nobody in the history of snow removal has cleared all of the ice and snow in the first pass. Generally, there's going to be a patch of ice or snow here and there whenever they're finished. So if you're walking behind that, or you're the one actually clearing the ice and snow, remember that there is a possibility that you're going to hit a patch of ice or snow. Also, somebody needs to be watching the lot. Entryways, high traffic areas, and problem areas each hour. Your managers should all know where those problems are and have a plan to address them. Everyone else, you need to report any problem areas that you find to your manager. That way they can be addressed. Make sure you're dressing for the occasion if you're removing snow. Remember that sprains and strain likelihood is increased with cold weather. And the notes that we talked about on chute and boot selection always apply. Use good shovel ergonomics, lift with your legs and not your back, and use common sense. Don't let the inexperienced people blade lots, run snow blowers, or run equipment that they haven't had training on. After the snow, we all need to be watching out for the refreeze. As I mentioned, we're going to have some drainage areas where ice and snow melts, and then it's going to refreeze on the pavement and be a slip and fall hazard. So make sure you have somebody inspecting the lot when this is going on, and watch out for your downspouts like in the picture on the left there. Stay clear of those and steer your visitors clear, and you may have to use extra ice melt throughout the day in those spots. Now to address all of the other falls from same level, and those are the slips and trips that are not related to ice and snow. And there are two main causes of these types of injuries: poor housekeeping practices and inadequate walking and working surfaces, and I'll expand upon both of these. These are some of the most common housekeeping deficiencies that we find in dealerships. None of these are anything but common sense practices. But what it comes down to is the consistency and how quickly these items get addressed when they happen, because they are going to happen. Like, everyone's going to have paper and trash, but let's not throw that on the floor. Let's put it in the receptacle. Or if it does go on the floor, let's get it cleaned up as quickly as possible. Keep your hoses and cords that you aren't using rolled up and put away, and that is one of the most common deficiencies found in service departments and body shops and detail shops. Clean up spills of chemicals immediately. The problem with that is folks will say, well, I'm going to get to that here in a second. I'm in the middle of this job. And they're walking around this puddle of slippery substance that could cause them to fall in the middle of the job. You're not going to fall whenever you're not working. Keep soiled shop rags and containers not on the floor, because they are a slip hazard. Yeah, we want them to go into the UL rated container because they can spontaneously combust or combust from sparks and such. But in my mind, the more immediate hazard is getting them off the floor so people don't slip on them. And if you can do all of these, I promise that your productivity and likelihood of having a major slip or fall accident is going to be reduced significantly. As I already mentioned, housekeeping during jobs, in service, the detail, or body shop is more critical than any other time. That's because you could be working right on top of those messes, like in that picture on the left there. This guy's just standing nonchalantly in front of a giant puddle, and this is something that we see on a regular basis in service departments, body shops, and detail shops. So make sure your major messes and spills are contained during each job. Clean your work bay before pulling in a new vehicle at the very least. And reel up your hoses and cords. I can't stress how important that is for your safety. It doesn't matter if it has a reel or not. You need to roll it up by hand if necessary. Now to discuss the common deficiencies we find in walking and working surfaces that cause slips, trips, and falls. And these are broken down into two different categories, the physical and the behavioral. The physical categories are most likely going to need to be brought to the attention of a manager or supervisor so a repair can be made. But as with any safety hazard, it's important that you bring things to the attention of your supervisor because you see the hazard more than anybody else, and they can't fix things if they don't know about it. So under physical, make sure if you have any floor grates, broken drains, or exhaust ports that are broken, loose, and not flush, we report those. Those are a major cause of trip and falls in service departments. Loose handrails, stair treading, and nosing is another big problem that we run into. Loose or broken kick plates and door thresholds need to be reported. And any broken concrete in parking lots or sidewalks that is causing a trip hazard. On the behavioral side of things, the most common ones that we find are items stored on stairways, because this is a major hazard as far as it's not just a trip and fall from the same level, but they're going to be falling from a higher level. Not addressing wet and slick floors, especially during inclement weather, not cleaning up the wet floors as soon as possible. And unnecessarily choosing to walk on areas that shouldn't be walked on. For example, a lot of dealerships require their employees to park off-site, and these employees are walking down grassy embankments or jumping across ditches to get to work. And the employer often knows about it. This is not a good thing. We all need to be walking on pedestrian walkways that are built for it. That way we can prevent some of these major slip and fall injuries that we run into. And finally, it's important to talk about personal risk factors that increase the likelihood and severity of a workplace slip and fall. Physical fitness or poor physical fitness and a high BMI increase the likelihood of an incident involving a slip and fall. And also, statistically, it'll take people who fall in those categories longer to recover. So it's important to take care of yourself. Age, everybody knows about the aging workforce being a problem for a number of reasons, but it's people who are higher in age. It's going to statistically take them longer to recover, and the accidents that they suffer from slips and falls or anything trauma related is going to be more severe. There's nothing that we can do about that other than taking care of yourself as much as possible and understanding that because you fall in that age group, you need to take a vested interest in preventing those incidents from happening altogether. Pre-existing conditions like musculoskeletal disorders and cumulative trauma disorders, it makes you more likely to re-injure those or injure them much worse than they already are. And of course, substance abuse. Being under the influence of drugs or alcohol is a great way to slip and fall, particularly if there is ice and snow outside or if you're working under poor housekeeping conditions. And tobacco use even, or any kind of drug that reduces blood flow is linked to delayed recovery. In conclusion, slips and falls are some of the most serious dealership accidents, whether they're from ice and snow or other causes. Preventing those slips and falls is primarily common sense. It is complacency that gets people injured. And I hope, if anything today, that's what we addressed. Now go forth and be safe.